all. Bills can win it here. White puts it down. The kick is on the way, and it is good. And the Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. They win it 41-38. Incredible. What a comeback by the Bills.
Jacksonville's perfect record on the line right here.
They put in Williams as the fullback, and he scores a touchdown, the 12th year defensive tackle.
And the fans are all over the field. Incredible. This place is pandemonium.
We are live with another episode of Disguise Coverage. Thank you, friends, family, folks, enemies. I did the whole intro last time with a lot of stuff like witches, wizards, muggles. Greg threw out a warlocks, but I'm not feeling that too much right now. I'm still a little sad. Buffalo Bills 2020 season has come to an end. That is the focus of this episode, the Buffalo Bills 2020 season review here on this episode of Disguise Coverage. I, of course, am Anthony, your host here on Disguise Coverage. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. Feel free to give me a follow on Twitter. If follows aren't your thing, I'm also down for Blood Oaths and or Adamantium and or any one of the Deathly Hallows. Or Voldemort's wand, really cool stuff like that.
We should do like a blood oath like through mail or something like that. Maybe we can do
that'd be fair. Or like through carrier pigeon,
in a little tube or something like that.
Ooh.
And then we just like
yeah.
Just kind of like
I don't know
it's
how
dark, but
be.
I mean I don't know. I just feel like you were going that way, so I figured I'd meet you halfway.
That's fair. And for those of you watching the videos, we go through the intro here, you guys, or for those of you listening, I should say, to the audio only on one of the many podcasting platforms that Disguise Coverage streams on, part of the Cover One Sports Network. You've either seen or heard another voice on this podcast besides myself, and that man is Mr. Steve Vega from the Buff Hub. And the reason he's on this episode, besides from the fact that we are friends and we work together, is I was on his podcast on the Buff Hub in July, roughly, to go over some Bills season previews, some thoughts about, Cam Newton and the Bills pin Patriots and the AFC East and all these things. And I like to bring things full circle. I like continuity. If you're a wrestling person, I'm a fan of long-term booking. So this is some long-term booking here. We started out on the Buff Hub with a season preview. Here we are together on a season review on Disguise Coverage. So Steven, welcome. Appreciate you. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to the Disguise Coverage fan base and Cover One Nation, and maybe talk about that awesome hat that you're rocking because it's amazing.
Well, you told me to wear it. I had several hats that I was trying on, and we were just kind of figuring out what the attire was going to be. Obviously, the Sabres are playing tonight, so I had to throw on my Jack Eichel jersey.
Beautiful.
Captain Jack, I think he's going to carry us for the win. Try not to jinx it, knock on wood.
Hope so.
So yeah, ladies and gents, I run the Buff Hub, a Buffalo Rumblings podcast, and I enjoy it. I do it every single Saturday. Have been doing it since the season started, right into the end of the offseason, whatever have you. And it's just been a blast. Guys like Bruce, definitely, you guys from Cover One, I've hosted y'all. Sal Capaccio, he's actually going to be on this weekend. Super excited about him being on there. We actually debated, and it was a pretty heated debate. I wasn't expecting it. Neither was he, but that's what happens when you're Bills fans, you're passionate sports fans. I'm super excited about the content for this weekend. And so I do the Buff Hub podcast. I haven't done video in a while. Actually, I think it was last time I was with Jay Spence, and I've done it before with Dan Mitchell. I'm connected all over the place, and that's the cool thing about being a Buffalo Bills sports fan, or just Buffalo sports fan. You meet so many great people. Met you, and we're constantly trading Ric Flair gifts ever since.
Woo, that is us. Rolex wearing, limousine riding, oldest ride, longest line, Ric Flair. Good stuff.
You're going to make me woo in a second, so just keep going before I take over with like 20,000 woos.
That's what she said. And that is the intro for this episode here on Disguise Coverage. And as I said in the lead-in, we are going to get into some of the Buffalo Bills 2020 season review, some favorite moments, some surprises, and then start to turn things with an eye towards the offseason, top offseason priorities, how far we think the Bills are from a Super Bowl, and some offseason storylines to watch. So that being said, let's jump right into it. If you're watching the video or the live stream, you'll see the banner change on the bottom. Their favorite moment/moments of the season. You are my guest on this show, good sir. So why don't you lead us off with your one of your favorite moments of the season?
Let me tell you, obviously an amazing season. Let me just begin.
Woo!
That's right, Joseph. And an amazing season. I got a smile on my face because there's nothing the beer can't fix, number one. With an entire year, you feel like a lot of people just felt like it went down the drain. I really don't think it did. And so in retrospect, looking back, and I really loved this question, although it was simple, it was just like, yeah, there was a moment. It wasn't just several moments that just kept happening sporadically where I couldn't really figure out if the Bills were for real or not. No, there was a moment. There was a moment where they made everyone believe they're here to stay. And that moment was the drive against the Rams at the end of the game. Okay. Yes, you want to call pass interference and, it's this way and that way the whole game. Beautiful. Because that's exactly how the playoffs are. And that's the monkey that was on Josh Allen's back going into this season. Can he win a game like this? And I'm watching this game and I'm on the edge of my seat because I'm just like, I'm so excited for Josh. Like, this is such a huge moment for his career. He can wear it as a badge for his new contract in the future. Like, he had several games, right? But, you look at the Rams defense is no joke.
Yep.
I believe they were the number one defense going into the playoffs. But
correct.
Fact of the matter is Josh Allen, it was a signature game, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget just the beautiful touch pass over to Croft, right over to the defender. And, it just made me feel like
alive.
The Bills are here to stay. I don't care if we go 10-6. I don't care if we go 9-7. Seeing him get that monkey off his back was amazing. We ended up going 13-3. So that's my moment.
Ooh, that's a good one. You know what's funny is I didn't even think of that one. I don't know why it didn't cross my mind in the earlier part of the year, but when it happened, especially because it was coming off of like such a crushing moment, like the Rams had come back and we just looked terrible on both sides of the ball. We couldn't stop anyone. We couldn't score. Josh got his first interception of the year on a horrible call, and just all the bad momentum and bad juju was going through. And then he answers on like a third or fourth and 38,000 yards to go, and we get the first, and then the clutch touchy. Oh, that's a really good moment. That's a good choice.
We got to think about it. The only losses that Josh Allen had this year, the Buffalo Bills had this year, was when they legitimately just got beat. And that's awesome. That's okay. That tells you we still have room to grow, and we're not making vital mistakes to lose a game. As a matter of fact, the Bills did the complete opposite this year. They capitalized on their mistakes by winning a game. You look at the Colts game, and that was a game we should have lost in a lot of people's eyes, but for some reason we were still in it. For some reason we still found a way to get back in the game and take charge of it, and that's who the Buffalo Bills are now. Now, there's a lot of room to grow. I know there's a lot of questions we're going to attack in regards to that, but that's the moment I'm always going to carry. I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was signature for Josh's career, and I'm really proud of him. I'm really proud of this team.
I like that answer. I like it a lot. Those of you watching live, feel free to throw into the comments your favorite moment or moments of the season. We've already started to see some come through. Danny here, his favorite moment, throttling the Pats in prime time / Belichick smashing a phone. That was a good one. Joseph came through talking about how ticky-tacky was that whole game with the Rams. And then his best moment was the entire Seahawks game. Josh completely dominated that defense, picked them apart, and had all the answers. And that is very telling. I had multiple moments that were good for me this year, but Danny and Joseph stole a little bit of my thunder. Appreciate you guys. I was torn here. So the New England Monday night beatdown is really up there for me. We have, and I don't care that the Pats didn't have Brady this year. I don't care that they had a quote-unquote down year, that they weren't playing good, that they weren't going to make the playoffs, and they were already out. I don't care. We have been the little brother to the Patriots for so long. We played them in game 1 of this year and barely won thanks to the heroics of Justin Zimmer and Cam Newton fumbling that game away. We could have lost that game very easily. And we went into that Monday night game on prime time against the Patriots, against a team that always had our number, and they were limping it again. and we were running strong, and we had to put our foot on the throat, and put the nail in the coffin and put them in the grave. And we did that. Just beat them down. Diggs had a great performance. Josh looked great. The defense for the Bills only gave up about 220 yards. No passing at all. Cam gets benched. Just a complete dismantling of the Pats on national television. We got to do the game to the Patriots that they had done so much to us, which was by the middle of the third quarter / end of the third quarter, everybody was just kind of like, well, this game sucks. I guess let's turn it over and do something else. Matt Barkley saw action in that game because that's how in hand a game was against a Bill Belichick-led Patriots team. That is so up there for me. It meant a lot emotionally, for nostalgia purposes, for going forward, and just for the optics of it. It looked great, felt great, but also up there for me, as Joseph mentioned in the comments, that Seahawks game. Russ came into that game as a dark horse / early favorite in the MVP race. The Seahawks were rolling. Jamal Adams was coming back. No, I don't think people really believed in us yet, but everybody was loving and digging Seattle. And like Joseph said, Allen picked them apart. We threw a gajillion times and ran it only when we had to, which was barely at all. Diggs was making everybody in Seattle's secondary look foolish, including Jamal Adams. We saw the great tunnel screen call from the check from Allen at the line, the opening drive touchdown to McKenzie, and then the defense turning Russ over 4 times. The scoreline, I think, was really misleading at the end with it being 44-34. But the Bills didn't really – I know they gave up 34 points, but there was a lot of garbage time points for Seattle, not to mention that huge deep one to David Moore when the Bills blew a coverage. They really dominated Seattle in all facets and forms and kind of knocked Russ out of the MVP race in a game that a lot of people look to as like, okay, let's see how we define ourselves. And that was a big win. And I don't know which one I can pick between, but those are my top 2 for sure.
Well, I guess we could leave it at there are a lot of signs that people didn't take seriously about the Buffalo Bills being in the Final Four, cream of the crop. And there were that game in particular was one of those games where people needed to recognize and know the Buffalo Bills will be going to the AFC Championship. It's a big deal. And now we know what those signs are. Now we know what games, how games need to go for the Bills to get back to that point. It's amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah. Great comment here from Joseph. I think that was the first time all season I've seen Russ stressed out on the field. That's very true. And I also had another top moment, even though it came by a devastatingly awful moment. The touchdown drive against Arizona. That throw to Diggs, the great route by Diggs, the accurate pinpoint dime of a throw from Allen, Diggs getting up and saying, that's why you pay me, and pointing to himself. It was just sad that it ended in one of the worst losses, even though it ended up being a galvanizing moment for the team and something that we look back on like, oh, that actually led to some positive things. That was so brutal, just watching them lose in the end like that on that stupid Hail Mary.
Well, Anthony, let me say this. The Buffalo Bills are notorious defensively for exposing quarterbacks that some people think are unexposable. I don't know if that's a good word. If that's even a word.
Lamar Jackson.
Yes. And we met Lamar Jackson again, and we showed everyone we were the blueprint on why the Tennessee Titans last year beat them.
Very true.
And everyone was terrified about the Buffalo Bills. I was terrified about the Buffalo Bills facing the NFC West this year.
Tough division.
We should have swept them aside from the Hail Mary. It's insane.
We should have.
And us dominating, going 3-1 against the NFC West. I mean, what else do you want the Bills to do to prove to you that they not only deserved, the second seed, but they deserve to be the AFC East champions? Like, they completely played lights out a lot of times throughout the year. Yes, there were times they struggled, but, in my opinion, I am of the belief that the Bills are going to play this way probably for the next I'm not going to go too far ahead, but I'd say for the next 5 years.
For the next 75 years.
Oh, yeah.
Too far? Did I go too far?
If Brandon Beane stays there and he keeps drafting the way he's drafting, I think we'll stay here for the next 200 years. I mean, he'll set the foundation that strong,
I like that. Yeah, that's a good point. There were so many moments in this season that you could hang your hat on and be like, oh, this team is for real. We have a good future. We have a good foundation. I think that ties in well to our next topic here as we start to switch gears a little bit. Biggest surprise or surprises of the season. In a season where the Bills won the AFC East for the first time since '95, they go into the playoffs as the second seed in the AFC, one of the best teams in all of football. Obviously, when you have a season with that much success and some question marks going into the year, obviously you have to have some surprises. Could be one, could be many. What was your biggest surprise or surprises of this 2020 season for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, I'm going to go – I really struggled going offense or defense on this, but I'm going to save my offensive take for the next question. But because this actually landed perfectly with what I've been feeling the entire year was I could not believe the void that Star Lotulelei left.
Oh, good one.
You know, and the whole season I'm thinking it's going to get figured out. It's going to get figured out. It's going to get figured out. And there just was never consistency. You know what I mean? And I do really believe – you look at a guy like Vita Vea, for example, from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and having that stickler in the middle where you know if you try to run up the middle, you're going to most likely only get 2 or 3 yards. You know that's what's going to happen. We didn't have that. We really needed to bring the safeties in a lot. We had to get a lot of help from the linebackers, and they started getting dinged up. So I look at the void not having Star Lotulelei, and it was alarming. And, you know, that was the biggest surprise of the season for me because, wow, look how the defense played. It was from 0 to none. Like, I couldn't believe how porous the defense was when the season started. I was like, okay, I'll take wins with our offense. Awesome. But defense, where the hell are you? Like, we're used to big plays, sacks, when people least expect it, just explosiveness. And we had to wait until the Seattle game to get that going, to generate that pass rush against Russell Wilson, which I thought was not the game. That was going to happen for sure. I thought it was going to happen against San Francisco. But, yeah, that was my surprise.
That's a really good one. The star effect, it's so funny to me because we saw, I think for a decent amount of time, especially last year, a lot of people just were riding Star for he's not worth his contract. He doesn't show up on the stat sheets. Like, how many tackles does he have? How many sacks does he have? So on and so forth. And I think this year, and I say all that because, one, it's in my notes. Two, I was a big fan of Star's. I thought he did things that don't show up on the stat sheet, and he does things that amplify the abilities of the rest of his teammates and the rest of the defense as a whole. And I think this year, granted, there were struggles for injuries and teams they played, and there was a multitude of reasons, but that star domino was massive. Bills fans were clamoring for a one tech for the entire season because of the void, as you put it, that Star Lotulelei left in the middle. Yeah. And this year really showed you the role that he played and what he did, and even just the effect on Ed Oliver, somebody who had to start to wear different hats to compensate for the loss of Star. He was functioning in roles that he shouldn't have to function in. It affected his game. I also think he got a lot of unfair criticism this year. Ed Oliver had a good year considering everything, even just on its own, but considering everything he had to battle against and go up against without Star being there. It affected the impact that he was able to make on a game-to-game basis. And exactly to your point, it changed how free Tremaine Edmonds would be able to be. It changed how free Matt Milano would be. That's a very good one. That's a very good one. That surprise, again, this was a defense that even just, I know fantasy isn't real life, but the Bills defense were the first defense off the board in a lot of fantasy football drafts. That's how good people thought the Buffalo Bills defense was going to be coming into this year. And the thought was, if the offense could just meet them halfway, this team would be a force to be reckoned with. And that's not what happened. The offense carried them, and that's part of my biggest surprise. I had a lot, but my hands down biggest surprise for me, I had Star. I had some individual players on the defense and offense, but number one for me is the play of Josh Allen. I came into this year thinking that if Josh could just make a similar jump in year 3, the way he made from year 1 to year 2, again, the Bills would be in really good shape. Let's see if he could just reduce some interceptions. Let's see if he could get to about 30 touchdowns. Let's see, how many yards he could pass for a game. I wasn't concerned on the individual metrics. Like, he's got to throw for 300 yards a game, and he's got to throw for 4,000. But just seeing the progression that he can make. And he came out this year being one of the favorites for MVP as we finish this year. And his ability to, one, change his mechanics. We taught that was lauded all offseason and going into this year. His work with Jordan Palmer and his ability to change his platform and his launch point, his hips, his shoulder, his throwing point, his throwing angle, that was all tremendous. But his mental ability to play quarterback, his processing pre-snap and post-snap, his ability to make reads and progressions, and then to tie it to the physical and make some of the throws that he made on a more consistent basis. We saw through his first 2 years, he would pull some throws out that were elite, that only he or Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes could make. And he would pull some amazing throws that just made your jaw drop. And then on the next play, he would make a throw that would make you want to reach the TV and punch him in the mouth. And this year, that's right, raise the eyes. But this year, just consistent in his play, consistency in his reads. I think that for me is what, not to turn it to a sad moment, but what made the playoff game against the Chiefs even more disappointing for me. All credit to the Chiefs. They played a great scheme on defense and the way they pattern matched and got physical and locked up the Bills receivers and created pressure up front. They did a tremendous job and they had a great game plan. But Allen had some reads and some completions that he could have made underneath, but he forced some throws. He made some things that he didn't necessarily have to make, and that's not the Josh we saw for most of the year. If you were going to give him a 6-yard completion, he was going to take it. If you gave him a 4-yard completion, he was going to take it. He pushed the ball downfield a bit, but he was a smart, dissecting, surgical quarterback for the regular season, and that surprised the heck out of me. I didn't know whether or not he could make that jump, whether or not he could solidify himself. He did that this year.
When's the last time you remember any team getting a receiver like Stefan Diggs and helping take a team to 13-3? The only one that comes to my mind, not even 13-3, but just literally shot the stock of a team all the way the hell up, was when Randy Moss got traded from the Raiders to the Pats.
I'm also thinking of when T.O. went to the Eagles.
Right. So there are times where players who get acquired, however, right, a number one receiver does that to a team. And that was absolutely not what I was expecting in Stefan Diggs' first year. I thought he was good, but let me be real. I did not think Stefan Diggs was this good.
I mean, he led the league in receptions and yards. I don't think anybody was coming in being like, what a great move. I mean, Diggs is going to lead the league in receptions and yards. Nobody was thinking that. Nobody. Not even the most optimist of fans.
When a wide receiver like him comes from a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, where Kirk Cousins has everyone in the world to throw to, you're thinking, maybe he just had a couple of good years that mounted up to a point where he felt he just wanted to get out and blah, 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 blah. I'm looking from the outside looking in, and I'm thinking to myself, we're going to have to see it quick and in a hurry before we get too invested, and then this turns into a, crapshoot. I am so thankful forever that the Buffalo Bills acquired Stefan Diggs. Stefan Diggs literally was franchise changing, and he got Cole Beasley to 1,000 yards this season overall.
And even when you juxtapose it with the thought in so many people's minds, how much did we hear? Oh well, if Diggs didn't like playing with Cousins, he's going to hate playing with Allen. Allen is inaccurate. Just wait until October when Diggs isn't showing up to practice and he's throwing a fit. And there were those stories were out there. He skipped practices in Minnesota. He didn't want to be there. People were labeling him a diva and a problem child. There was a decent amount of Bills Mafia that was upset with how deep the wide receiver class was in the 2020 draft. They were like, I can't believe we gave up all these picks for a receiver when we could have just stayed in the first round and taken one. There was still a good amount of doubt around that move, let alone the optimistic people who nobody was thinking, whether you were the most optimistic or the most pessimistic, nobody was thinking this dude is going to come in, lead the league in receptions and yards, take away attention from Cole Beasley to the point that he's going to lead the league in receiving yards from the slot, help Josh Allen to an MVP type year. You nailed it. That was a franchise altering trade. And it came almost out of nowhere and shook this team up and the fan base, but there was still so much doubt with it. And he came in and crushed it in every way. Like there was when Moss went to your point, when Moss went to the Pats, there were people thinking, well, he was not good in Oakland. Is he washed up? We'll see what happens. But when Owens went to the Eagles, everybody was like, oh, dude, McNabb got a number 1. Owens is sick. The Eagles are going to be nasty. The Bills, with that acquisition of Diggs, it was more similar to Moss, which was like, is it going to work? Do we believe in Josh Allen? Is Diggs a jerk? Let's see what happens.
I mean, from 58% to 69% completion percentage, like, it's unheard of.
After people said that it could never be done, and if Josh Allen did it, he would defy math itself. Yeah,
and it goes to show you that this game isn't played by robots by any means. And like in the sense of you need to be a prototypical type of quarterback, just like Brady, or similar to Rodgers, or you got to be a hair looking like Ben Roethlisberger, where you got to have that it factor or whatever. I think Josh Allen has his own it factor. He's kind of awkward when he runs. He kind of reminds me of Mose from The Office. I had to do it. I don't care. I don't care how in the hell he runs. If he's going to run around and make a play, running 25 miles an hour and the ball goes 40 yards down the field and he throws it like a dart, I'll take it every single game.
Hashtag runs like Mose.
Yeah, go ahead. Hashtag runs like Mose indeed. I don't care. I'll take Mose every day of the week if he's going to take me to the AFC Championship. You kidding me?
Oh, yeah. His play close behind Allen was that Diggs acquisition. I'm so glad you spoke about it, because it just, again, we have the Allen Diggs duo is now being put in the same category with some of the best duos in the league. I mean, it's even just the love for it. Granted, some people are, slave to the moment, but it's being talked about in the same breath as Kelly and Reed. And those are 2 Hall of Famers. Jim Kelly and Andre Reed are 2 of the best of all time at their positions.
When you're done, I got to bring something up that Sal told me. It's a spoiler for this weekend's episode on Buff Hub, but I want to tell you.
Say it now. What did Sal Capaccio tell you?
Sal Capaccio, number 1, is an almanac. He has so much data.
He's a cornucopia of knowledge.
Oh my gosh. I'll just sit there and I literally just let him talk so much as we were recording, because I couldn't help but just take in this amazing perspective of 1988 when the Bills went to the AFC Championship and lost. And he was saying to me, this is exactly what 1988 felt like. He says, I'm not saying this just to say it, Steve. I'm saying this to every Bills fan watching. 1988 was this year. He said, I got chills thinking about what I felt like. Younger, seeing the Bills electrifying, Jim Kelly, and I'm just saying to myself, watching them, like, we have something. Finally, we have something. And it's special. And that's what Bills fans, I think, really need to, I don't know if acquiesce is the right word, but really take in and soak in and understand and dissect. Like, this is a good offseason to do that. Like, this is a great time to learn about your team, learn about football history, keep the confidence, and understand what is built in Buffalo is here to stay. It's serious. We're a contender. This is no joke. We're a couple of steps away from legitimately being polarizing to a lot of teams, just like the Steelers and the Ravens were when you look back in the day with Hines Ward and Ray Lewis, all those guys. Like, we're looking like one of those teams. Tremaine Edmonds is on his way. God bless the Matt Milano situation, which I ranted about. You're going to hear about this weekend, but, another conversation.
That's a perfect segue to, 1, get me hyped up, but 2, going to our next topic here, which is the top offseason priority for the Buffalo Bills. I see your wide eyes there. What is your top offseason priority? Again, you could have multiple. You could have 1. Danny seems to think if we add a run game, we're the new Chiefs. I like that. Tell me what your top priority is.
If the Chiefs had an amazing run game, let me just be real with you. If they had amazing running backs, they wouldn't have picked up Le'Veon Bell.
Oh.
What the Chiefs have in regards to that, what the Chiefs have is amazing movement. They're fluid. Everyone on their team just knows what the hell's going on.
Yeah,
they're flying around. They're going this way and that way. Tyreek Hill looks like he's going to do a full motion. He stops at the fullback position and just freaking bolts the other way. What do? Probably you saw what you could do. Pretty much absolutely nothing. You need someone at the defensive back position who can match that some way, somehow, which maybe that's the Tyreek Hill is going to spark, what the future is going to look like at the defensive back position. Because it sure as hell ain't going to happen at the linebacker position trying to cover him. So, yes, my point segues into this. I had to pick between the D-line and this. It was tough because, yes, I told you about Star Latulele and that being the biggest surprise. We just need a stronger running attack. I don't care what the hell it takes. Okay. I don't care. I don't care if it's better offensive linemen. I don't care if it's a faster running back. I don't care if it's a guy like Derrick Henry, Najee Harris from, Alabama. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know who fits the system the best. What I do know is that our running game looked absolutely vanilla garbage ice cream this year. I don't know how else to say it. It was embarrassing. Devin Singletary was looking amazing last year. And for some reason, when the offensive line gets healthy, I'm not talking about before the offensive line, when they were dealing with all this Brian Winters, whatever. When the offensive line got healthy, we were struggling to look close to what we looked like last year. We had our moments, but my God, what is it going to take? We know what Devin Singletary's, what he's bound to become, but it's like, okay, I don't know what that's going to take, though. I don't know if it's going to be offensive linemen. I don't know if it's something to blame Dable about, but we don't even want to talk about, blaming Dable because we're thankful to have him back. The passing game is amazing. But, man, when you go into the playoffs and your running game is nowhere to be found, that's my biggest question mark. That is my biggest priority this offseason.
How would you like to see – so this has been a hot topic amongst a lot of Bills fans and in the Bills social media community and the Twitterverse, because I want to know here what your thought is on how the running game – how you would like to see it improve, because I, too, would like to see the same thing. It's not my top offseason priority, but I think the running game needs to improve. However, I don't think that is equal to running the ball more. I don't think we necessarily need to pass less and run more. I don't think more volume equals more success, but we need to be impactful whenever we do run, whether that's 2 times, 20 times, 12 times. When we run, we need it to mean something. We need it to be enough of a threat and pose enough of a threat that the opposing defense has to account for that in some way, shape, or form, that it's in the back of their mind that, if they run it here, we might be in trouble, or we still got to watch out for the run and we can't sell out for the pass completely. That's how I would like the running game to improve. Is that also what you're thinking, or are you talking more just volume perspective and you want to see more pass-run balance?
I think we need to figure out what the hell the identity is. Like, I don't care if it's just ground and pound and we're successful getting, 4 yards average, 4 yard average. But the fact of the matter is that, look, the Chiefs' identity is this: quadruple option. Let's let Kelsey get it, Mahomes get it, the running back get it. Everybody's going to get the football when he's going to pitch it off, and it's going to go left and right and this way and that way, and they're moving everybody everywhere. That's who the Chiefs are, right? How do you stop it? Maybe it's still yet to be seen as Harley Davidson roars through here. Look, fact of the matter is that I don't care what the running game looks like. I just don't want to see our franchise quarterback for the potential 10 to 15 years get mollywopped, get knocked out of the game, get concussed, and never look. And he ends up looking like a shell of himself. I don't want to deal with that. If I'm Sean McDermott, I definitely don't want to see that happen to me, because I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to start getting blamed for not being able to, pick up the right players, know where the void's at, blah, blah, blah. And look, I don't care. I don't care what it looks like. If it's a guy like Derrick Henry, awesome. If it's, we got to bring a fullback in, we didn't have a fullback all season, for crying out loud. I think that could have been an issue. You're just trying to pound it up there. You got, Dawson Knox in the pistol formation, which I really liked, by the way. I thought it was a very awesome thing to see. I thought it was very cool to see that wrinkle in the offense. I thought it was something that was actually signature with the Buffalo Bills this season. I didn't see a lot of teams doing it like the Bills did. Now, what I think ultimately will determine how this run game goes is next year, when we start to get a couple of games going, we're going to find out pretty quickly if the offensive line is overrated or if Devin Singletary he's pretty much just hit his ceiling. I don't know about Zach Moss. Zach Moss is going to come off an injury. Here we go all over again. We have these question marks at the running back position. But, that's where I'm going to stop because I'll rant and I'll go down a rabbit hole. You have to stop me early.
Fair enough. Oh, there's a message here from Lone Wolf, regular fan of the show. It's sad when your leading rusher is your QB after spending third-round draft picks on running backs, obviously in reference to Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. That's fair. And again, like I said, that's a big one for me. I just don't want people to think that improving the running game means more volume because this is a passing team. This is a passing offense. The key to this team going forward is Josh Allen and Stefan Diggs, and the analytics community and the metrics all point to sustainable offenses in today's NFL and more successful offenses in today's NFL are passing offenses. But to your point and to my desire that exists in my brain, we need to have a more impactful running game. It needs to be a threat. It needs to be there. I like where Danny's head is at. Aaron Jones, I think he's going to cost a little too much, and the cap situation is going to be something that is massive to monitor this offseason. But Aaron Jones should get paid. But also we got to see, could he get paid? What's his market value? What's the leverage he has? Got to see where that money can go and how much they're going to have to spend. And part of that is in my top offseason priority. Buffalo Bills defense, a Sean McDermott defense. Your linebackers are the absolute key to that defense. I'm going to pull this comment real quick. I do believe we need more speed at running back. I agree. I would like to see some speed and some better route running from the running back position. But in a Sean McDermott defense, whether in Carolina, whether even when he was in Philadelphia, your linebackers are so key, are so important. And it's the same in the Bills defense. When Edmonds and Milano were cooking, this is a good defense. This is a functioning defense. And those linebackers are even more important because we run a nickel defense as our base defense. So you need your two linebackers to be able to cover sideline to sideline. They need to be able to blitz. They need to be able to take on blockers. They need to be able to execute run fits. They need to be able to make plays sideline to sideline. They need to be able to be versatile and do a lot of things. Matt Milano is one of those linebackers for the Bills right now, and he does a lot. He was one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL for the last several years. He has really risen up since being a late-round draft pick. If the Buffalo Bills do not re-sign Matt Milano, which I want them to, but I recognize it's going to be tough. Same thing with keeping Darrell Williams. The contract situation and the salary cap is going to be tough. It was already going to be tough before the cap went down. If the cap is reduced to 175 or even 180, which would obviously be more, that's still going to be hard to navigate. If Matt Milano leaves, which has a decent to high likelihood of happening, my top offseason priority is getting a linebacker to fill that spot, whether it means we go hard in free agency, but I would prefer to go linebacker then in the first round. If Koromoa somehow drops or even Zaven Collins, I'm starting to get into a lot of film as we get towards draft season, a lot of tape, and I've started grinding, but I'm not completely there yet. We have to address the linebacker position if Matt Milano goes, because we saw what happened when Matt Milano went down. All respect to A.J. Klein until he was used a little appropriately and we all started signing apology forms for him. A.J. Klein was a mess. That linebacker spot was a mess. I'm seeing some comments coming through on Darren Lee. I don't know if I'm ready to be confident in Darren Lee to start and fill the shoes of Matt Milano. I don't know if I recognize his speed, but I don't think he can function in that same capacity as Milano. He might be able to, but right now I am nowhere near being able to say that. And there's a lot of prospects in this draft that could fill that spot. And if we lose Matt Milano, again, Sean McDermott defense, the priority that linebackers have, the necessity that they have for that defense to be successful, that is automatically my top offseason priority. And that's literally where my head is at. Right now, I've got some others. I would like to see the offensive line addressed. I would like to see the defensive line addressed. I would like more of a strong edge rusher, somebody who can just straight win one-on-one. I don't want to have to scheme all the time and run stunts in games and simulate pressures. I want a guy that we can put on the edge and just be like, nope, he's really good. He's going to beat whoever's trying to block him. I want somebody who can do that. But if we lose Milano, which, as people in the comments are saying, Bean's not going to pay Milano big money, especially with the time that he's missed and, having to value Darrell Williams over Milano to protect your quarterback. It's very, very, very possible that Matt Milano goes, which would be sad because he's my favorite Bill. If we lose him, top offseason priority is replacing him.
It is also, I love Matt Milano. I've been an advocate of the Italian Stallion since freaking March last year, okay? Knew this day was looming, and I dreaded it. Look, there also is a big, strong possibility that when Latule gets back, whoever plugs in that position is going to have it way easier. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be so difficult to be able to do what we need to do on defense. I think having that defensive line last year as cohesive as it was really helped Milano develop, really helped Tremaine Edmonds develop. And going into this year, it was rough for them to see. Boom. I mean, night and day. They bared a lot of the load. People got to the second level really quick, and they paid the price. Their shoulder, pectoral, you name it. And it was tough to see. But, I'm happy they fought through it. But I want to go back to something real quick, if you don't mind, because to bring relevancy to this whole running game situation. This Super Bowl is going to be a perfect example of, is it just schematically what works in the NFL now, or is it really just coaching? Because we're going to see running backs and people flying all over the place with the Chiefs, and then you're going to see a very structured, just man-to-man up type of offense from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they're just going to run it up the gut with Fournette, or they're going to, run a zone read or whatever with Ronald Jones. So they're not very fancy in the run game. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see if the old-fashioned stuff really still works in a game like this. I think it can. But you're going to see the biggest test against, obviously, Kansas City. So I wanted to bring that up and just, throw that out there. So I thought it was very interesting to think about.
I like your thought there. Your mind is on the running game. I don't disagree for that importance going through. And there are several priorities. I wanted to pull up. I had this comment up from Randy Hardman, fan of the show, and awesome guy on Twitter. Appreciate you. There are options to replace Milano, both on the roster and in the draft. I recognize some of the pieces on the roster. I'm not as hopeful for them as I am some players in the draft. And the only problem with hoping for in the draft is you got to hope those players are still there. And you have to hope that certain guys fall and there's a certain run on certain positions that you don't need in order for those guys to fall. And I think even in just this discussion, you've talked about the running game and talking about whether the running back needs to be addressed or the offensive line needs to be addressed. And I've spoken about the offensive line, the defensive line, replacing Matt Milano. I'd also like to see if Milano is gone again, he is the top priority for me, replacing him with someone who is quality and who can play all three downs in the Bills defense and fulfill those responsibilities and not be a vulnerability. Or some sort of, I wouldn't doubt Bean's ability to do this, signing and acquiring players that can collectively fill the void of Matt Milano. But I would prefer it to be one holistic person. But along with the Matt Milano priority and the offensive line and the defensive line, we saw some quotes from McDermott in talking about the need to get more speed and physicality on this team. And in seeing how we lost to Kansas City and seeing how we were bullied to a degree with some physicality, we did not meet the Chiefs. We met their chippiness after the play, but in game, their jamming and their ability to get physical on both sides of the ball, especially with their defense against our offense, we didn't meet that. And with a team like the Chiefs, you need to be able to get physical with Travis Kelce, be able to maintain some sort of athleticism and or speed with Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman. I said it on the film room with Eric Turner this week when we were going over the Bills and Chiefs game. The Bills defense is a technically sound defense. They are a well-coached, well-schemed defense. However, they're not overwhelmingly athletic and or fast. If you look at their secondary, which is a very good secondary, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are, in my opinion, the best safety tandem in the NFL. And if they're not fine, more power to you, but they're at least top 3. In a worst case scenario, you might like somebody else. That's fine. But neither of them are burners. Tre'Davious White, one of the best corners in the NFL, he's not coming through within 97 Madden speed. Neither is Levi Wallace. Dane Jackson is my boy, and I love him, and I think he can fill Josh Norman's role next year, and he should be in heavy rotation for the number 2 corner spot. But Dane Jackson, also not a burner. We are not an overly fast or physical or big defense. We are a technically sound, well-schemed, well-coached defense. The problem is when you play teams that have a lot of God-given ability, i.e. size, strength, or speed, like the Kansas City Chiefs, which mainly is speed, combined with how well coached they are with Andy Reid, combined with having Patrick Mahomes. When you play a team like that and your team relies upon technique and execution, if you do not bring your best technique and do not bring your best execution, if you are slightly off, you will get burned time.
Can you do me a favor? There's a comment by Tommy Rhodes that says that's what pissed me off right there. Can you throw that? Okay. I want to read it. That's what pissed me off. The Chiefs could be run on. That's how the Browns were able to climb back into the game. It goes back to my point. And did we just see a Buffalo Bills team not necessarily outplayed, but possibly just outcoached? And we don't want to admit it. And we want to put all the blame all over the players. Look, I got into a heavy debate. Again, this Saturday, you can hear me and Sal Capaccio go back and forth about it. I was very upset that I didn't see Matt Milano tested in man-to-man. I saw a lot of zone, and it was just riding me up the walls. And
we didn't get physical with Travis Kelce at all. No chips, no jams, nothing to reroute.
Who in the hell else do we have besides Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano to go mano-a-mano right off the line and at least push him to let the D-line get some pressure for a couple of seconds? You know, I'm thinking the whole thing about that game was just frustrating to watch because we didn't figure anything out until the end of the game. And honestly, to me, I've been doing this podcasting, doing analytics for a while now. Look, that's a sign to me that your coach has no idea how to match up. Mm-hmm. You know, and I towards the beginning of the game, it was a very big struggle. I didn't see. I know Tyreek Hill, but we stopped Tyreek Hill. We slowed him down in the first game. Why didn't we just let them try to run this time again and see if a more improved defensive line, I don't know, would have just done better? You know, that game, that's when we plugged in, you know, Zimmer. It was raining, and it was, you know, Edwards-Helaire. I mean, it was a sloppy football game on both sides, but we did not allow them to pass the football. So, yeah, and exactly, there you go. No way Kelce should have been allowed to get a free release. I totally agree with that. And that was a very heated conversation I had, you know, where people are, I think people are giving the Kansas City Chiefs a little too much freaking credit here. Okay? That's all I'm saying.
But they –
it's a great team. They're a great team. Don't get me wrong, but I just think the players –
This is a topic that could go on for forever. This is – I mean, the Bills did not bring their best in terms of execution or planning, and they got out-coached. They got outplayed. They got out-schemed. They got out-executed. But they didn't play like the team that we normally see them play all year, whether from the play calling, the execution, the coverage. They did play a little timid and a little conservative in a lot of ways. Oh, we got the Cover One channel talking in the Super Bowl champs. Too much credit. Well, that's from Eric there, the Godfather of Cover One. That's I recognize that the Bills did not bring their best. They did not bring their best at all. But as far as giving Kansas City too much credit, I mean, they have so much talent. They're well coached. They executed so well. They were able to pick apart everything that we did.
Are you then telling me? Look, Eric, I would love for you to comment as well, and I'd love to host Eric as well. It would be great. Are you telling me that the Browns are better than the Bills then? Because the Browns sure as hell gave them a run for their money.
But the
Bills
Browns
were just outplayed and outcoached the whole freaking game. I mean, offensively, we couldn't figure anything out.
But the Browns offense has one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They have better running backs. They have a completely holistic, different scheme in terms of how they're coached and how they're game plan, what they're able to do. I don't think, as Eric's throwing up there, they are a different team and scheme. I don't think with the Browns being able to run the ball the way they did and have success, They definitely did that, but the Bills aren't built like the Browns, much in the same way that if the Browns had to get into a shootout where they have to pass to get it through, they're not built like the Bills where they can spread you out and just pick you apart. I don't think the Bills can match the Browns' running ability with that line, with that scheme, and with their running backs. I don't think, even if we wanted to come through and be like, hey, let's deploy the same game plan that the Browns used against Kansas City, I don't know if we can run that game plan. You got to dance with the girl that brought you to a degree, and the Chiefs were ready for the girl that we brought to the dance, and they schemed against her, and they executed phenomenally.
Yeah, I would say, look, the execution was great, but I'm just saying a team as a whole, I know Mahomes was out of that game, but you got to give credit. You got to give credit where it's due. That defensive line they were just pummeling that team. And I think the defensive line of the Browns is pretty damn good. I think the defensive line of the Bills is pretty damn good. We shut down the Baltimore Ravens. What else? I don't know what else to say. Oh, you want to get into the passing game and schematically and stuff. I understand that, but I just don't understand how you can go from literally locking down Lamar Jackson.
Well, it's a different offensive scheme against.
Well, the point is, Ant, you looked worse. You looked worse in the AFC Championship game than you did when we first played in the season. So, what was the difference then? I mean, we were locked and loaded, ready to go. It had to be a coaching issue. It had to be, in my opinion, it's a coaching issue that needs to get addressed. There was talent, and yes, then they played really amazing man-to-man the whole game. Right? But does that onus go against Stefan Diggs? I mean, why aren't you getting separation? You're getting separation all year, you know?
True. I mean, I think it's with how we played in the first game against the Chiefs versus how we played in the AFC Championship, I think, again, that's more credit to the Chiefs. They adjusted better than we did, and they attacked what they saw better than we did. And they executed their game plan better and were able to feed their guys better than we were able to do ours. And I want to bring it back to that Ravens point. We definitely shut down Lamar. We provided the blueprint last year. As you mentioned, Logan Ryan and the Titans said it in the playoffs when they beat the Ravens that the Bills provided that blueprint. We were able to just execute it a little better and have some, offensive success. The Bills have a good blueprint to beat Lamar Jackson. They've already established that. But shutting down the Ravens' offense because of Lamar's deficiencies in the passing game and because of their lack of weaponry on the outside to test the Bills' secondary, the Ravens matchup is a better matchup for the Bills because of how they can commit and stop the run versus that Chiefs' offense. I recognize how strong the Ravens' running game is, and it's a good offense. They do a lot of good things. But just because you're able to stop that offense doesn't mean you can stop another team's offense, especially when one is more run-focused versus pass-focused. They're different things. They're different animals.
Let me give you this stat. The Chiefs have allowed, the whole year, the Chiefs have allowed more than 75% of opponent trips in the red zone to go for a touchdown.
Correct. They were last in the league.
We are the greatest offense in the NFL at scoring in the red zone this year. Why in the hell are we leaving with field goals? It's a coaching issue. We should have blown them out if we would have scored, I think, 2 of those touchdowns. Down the rest of that. Down the rest of that.
That's a very large assumption.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, you got to understand momentum. Old momentum.
Okay.
Is a very strong factor in a football game. Emotions play a huge part.
True,
in
very
a
true.
Football game. And I'm telling you right now, you got a ton of fans in there, right? They allowed more fans than ever this season for some freaking reason. But yet the Bills couldn't get that, until
I know,
the
right?
playoffs.
The Chiefs had like 1 million people in the stadium.
Whatever NFL. Look, fact of the matter is that I find that unacceptable.
But with the momentum thing, the Chiefs last year were down, 24-0 to Houston in their own house in that same scenario in a much more disheartening fashion.
But if you want to get into that, remember who was shutting down Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce was getting shut down by their third string, whoever's playing against him. He got hurt, Travis Kelce went off, and everyone thought it was all Travis Kelce. No. Travis Kelce got loose because he was going against, I think, their 4th or 5th string cornerback at that point.
No, but my point with that is the momentum aspect. Like, the Chiefs have gone down, and they went down to Tennessee that same playoff as well. For them, I don't think even if we capitalize on whatever, even if we go up 24-0, 21-0, I don't think you can say if we score those touches, we blow out Kansas City. They are a team that is built to come from behind, to sustain drives in a short way and take up time, but also just gouge you for like a 5-play, 80-yard touchdown drive in the blink of an eye. I don't know if we're blowing out KC. And that momentum aspect, I fully recognize it. But they were down in similar facets and forms before, and they've shown their ability to come back in the blink of an eye because of their talent and because how well coached they are and because of how well they execute.
Well, look, I'm not taking away that they are explosive. What I am saying is that the Bills are explosive too.
Very true.
The Bills were a shell of themselves in this football game. And it just blew my mind away that there wasn't a single moment where I said to myself, look, the Bills are going to win this game. The whole game, I felt, we're going to lose it. Since right when the first couple of drives happened, I said to myself, they don't know what in the hell to call in the red zone. They don't know. And that was very frustrating to me because whenever the Bills consistently score in the red zone, they are a nightmare. And teams want to match that. They start playing more aggressive. What I think what it was with that Chiefs game is that this is the thing. The Chiefs were in control the entire game. So practically, they did whatever the hell they wanted to do.
Correct. They dictated on both sides of the ball.
So
correct.
That's why I'm saying they had momentum. Old Mo is a huge factor that is not a stat. True. Momentum is you're in the football game, you're playing it, and when you feel it shift, when a turnover happens, whatever. Look back at the Raiders game when we get that fumble with Josh Norman. What did you feel? The
Momentum.
Bills were in control.
Yes,
momentum.
But that's I am all for that. I recognize the momentum.
I'm just saying. Aspect. Yeah, that's my point though. It's like you can't rule out if the Bills. What if they consistently just scored in the red zone on those trips, and with touchdowns instead of field goals, or at least 3 touchdowns instead of field goals, like in that whole span that happened. Like, I don't know. I just see a completely different game. I see Daboll pulling out different plays. When the Chiefs saw that they couldn't score in the red zone, they manned up the entire freaking game. We couldn't figure it out.
This is, man, I really want to continue this conversation.
I know. Look, it's a good one. And everyone's going to keep having it all year. But it's just fresh. It's a fresh wound. We're going to heal. We're going to get statistics. We're going to get this. We're going to get that. But don't ever forget Old Mo.
Fair enough. That actually leads into our next topic here of how far are the Buffalo Bills from a Super Bowl, whether making it, whether winning it. I think the Chiefs have firmly established that they are the cream of the crop in the NFL. They are the team to measure oneself against. So how far, in your opinion, are the Bills from a Super Bowl?
Look, I think the coaching, it's going to get fixed. This game was a big learning lesson for them, a huge learning lesson for them. And thankfully, because of the way the chips have fell, cross our fingers, knock on wood, we still have the same coaches, the same personnel, you name it, right?
Mm-hmm. Continuity.
Look,
I like it.
This is what I'm going to say. I believe the Bills are a stronger 4-man rush away from getting to the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
Because, look, I love Jerry. I think Jerry is going to be an all-time Bill forever. I love him. I think he has done amazing things in games, in situations that no one else could, right? I mean, the legendary football or fumble for touchdown against Denver, that was awesome. Mm-hmm. It's a moment for Bills history forever. It was great. It was awesome. He's had moments like that over and over and over. But look, I'm going to be honest with you. There was zero pressure against Mahomes. Mahomes isn't running around like Lamar Jackson. What's the issue? Like, I get it. You want to give him more credit that the offensive line was better? No. I'm going to leave it at this. Maybe the 4-man rush is just not good enough to get to the Super Bowl. Because if your 4-man rush is good enough, then you bring 5, you're a nightmare. If you look at Kansas City on the other side, they played faster, they played stronger. Feliciano was getting driven back like it was practice.
Yep, Chris Jones had his number all night.
I never saw Feliciano get pummeled like that. And that's why, tensions boiled over into the end of the game. Josh Allen got frustrated. We didn't know what to do. But their defensive line is a perfect example of what it's going to take in a game like that to get to the Super Bowl. They rushed 4. They stopped us because they rushed 4. Everyone else was able to get manned up, double covered. They were able to play 2-man deep and do whatever the hell they wanted to do with one of the other guys. Like, they did whatever they wanted to because on the scoreboard, they had control, number one. Mm-hmm. And number 2, their 4-man rush got there. And I think when you have a strong 4-man rush, you're a force to be reckoned with. Look at history in the Super Bowl. For God's sakes, the 9-7 and 10-6 New York Giants taking down Big Bad Brady and the big bad offensive line and weapons he had. Yeah, I mean, what other evidence do you need? You don't have to dig too far and to try to figure that out. So that's just my opinion.
I like where your head is at. I echo the sentiments of the pass rush. I would like to see a stronger edge rusher coming off. Somebody, again, who we know can just get consistent pressure one-on-one. But that's hard to find in just one person, in one thing. And because of that, I am leaning towards – there's been some comments in it in the chat already. In order to get over the hump, you have to be able to contend with the best team in the league, to contend with the bully on the block. We saw it in the 30 for 30 documentary series on Jordan and the Bulls. They had to build themselves to be able to beat the Detroit Pistons, both as a team and Michael Jordan himself, his training regimen, his mentality. You have to be able to be built to go toe-to-toe with who's the best. I think the Bills right now, if they just stand pat, if everybody comes back and they continue to evolve as they have, which isn't guaranteed, I think they're one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the NFL. I legitimately think that. However, I think the gap between the Bills and the Chiefs is very large. I do not think we match up well with the Kansas City Chiefs because of their speed and their athleticism. I think in McDermott's presser a couple days ago when he spoke about, we need to look at some things, we need to see speed, we need to see more physicality. I think that is an aspect that needs to get upgraded and was said by a couple people here in the chat. Well, what do you got? You got a point?
It's a hypothetical. It's fantasy, but look.
Okay.
Do we win against the Chiefs if Bill Belichick is our coach with the same personnel?
Oh, wow. That's a massive hypothetical, man.
Well, no, hey. I mean, do we win? Yes or no? With the players we have on the field and on defense, do we win? Yes or no?
I don't know.
You see what I'm saying? That should be a black and white answer. If it is,
no, but that can't be a black and white answer. That's such a massive hypothetical.
If you want to get to the Super Bowl, you got to coach like Belichick. He's done it plenty of times. He's gotten there as many.
That's also granted, but that's also discounting players that he's had and situations that he's had and all the external variables and the context that has led him to that point. That's a massive hypothetical. Oh, boy.
Well, I'm just saying, though.
I mean, what's your answer to that question? If Belichick is the coach of the Bills, do the Bills win that game?
Absolutely. 110%.
Wow.
He has the experience. He has he knows what the aura is like being in that game, keeping your players engaged, and how to be in that game. That was Sean McDermott's first time ever coaching as a head coach in an AFC Championship game. Let that sink in. So, yes, I'm not taking anything away from Sean McDermott. Amazing accomplishment. I am proud of the whole team. What I am saying is if you want to beat them, you have to coach like that. That's all I'm saying. Like, coaching-wise is a huge deal. When situation.
Massively.
You want to get into plays. You want to get into schematics. Situations are everything. And if you know how to coach in situations, you consistently win really big football games. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I just don't know if the Bills are built, and I see the comment here from Tommy, Belichick would have played coverage instead of soft zone. That's for one. The Bills did go man and switched up coverages towards the end of the game. They got burned worse than when they were in their zone. I fully recognize, and I think that the Bills got out-coached. They got out-manned in terms of situational football and just the overall game aspect. Andy Reid and crew which is a phenomenal crew. Spags is a Super Bowl winning coordinator and coach. Eric Bieniemy is a guy who should be a head coach. He's phenomenal. And then you have Andy Reid. I think McDermott and crew, they got outcoached. That's fine. And as Eric is throwing there from the cover one, and they got toasted when they went to man. That's correct. I don't want to doubt or say that there's no way that you can coach up any unit to beat someone else. But I also think as much as the Bills coaching staff missed and whiffed on this game, which they did not set us up for success, and we did not execute how we should have. I don't know if the Bills have the horses to run with the Chiefs.
I'm going to ask you a real tough question after this. Go ahead.
I just don't know if at the end of the day, like even saying like, oh, we should have not played soft zone. We should have manned up. We should have done this. Who's manning up against Tyreek Hill? The speed aspect. Who's manning up against Mecole Hardman? I would have liked to get more physical against Kelsey. I think we could have done some things with him, but the guy's one of the best, if not the best tight end in the league who's putting up historical numbers. And they scheme and execute combined with that talent. And I don't know if go ahead with your question here, because I'm getting distracted by the smirk on your face, and I want to know.
I'm playing devil's advocate because we got crap to address. You want to get to the Super Bowl, you got to ask the hard questions.
Okay.
Does Bill Belichick blow a 9-0 lead?
Dude, it was 9-0 in the first quarter.
Doesn't matter. You're up 2 possessions. You're up 2 possessions. You're up 2 possessions.
Dude, it's the first quarter, though. With like
the momentum got sucked out of the stadium.
No, it did not. They were down 9-0 in the first 5 minutes. There's still 10 minutes left in the first, the entire rest of the second, the entire rest of the third, and the entire rest of the fourth. Not to mention, as Steven put there, that 9-0 lead, I'm guessing, was fake. There was good coverage on the first drive on Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill drops a completion that puts him at midfield on the first drive for the Chiefs. And then the Bills get stopped. They punt. Hardman drops the ball. He fumbles, and the Bills score a TD. That 9-0 lead was built on unsustainable factors. And that 9-0 lead, I recognize it's a 2-score lead. That's not a lead that is putting anybody in the grave, let alone the Chiefs and the type of offense they're built around, let alone with how much time was on the clock. I don't think that's enough of a lead.
Turf Toe Mahomes was playing against us, not Patrick Mahomes. Turf Toe Mahomes.
No, they shot him up. He was fine. Look at his mobility, the way he was running.
He was not running out of that pocket. He was throwing at will, however.
But he still has that escapability and their scheme ability. I don't think just because he had a toe injury, that means that a 9-0 lead with Bill Belichick means that it's over.
It's a dangerous injury, number one. It's a dangerous injury. You push him out of the pocket a few times and you force him to make a throw that he doesn't want to make, you get turnovers. And let me tell you something right now. Against the Chiefs in the second quarter, you cannot score 3 points.
Very true.
The Chiefs scored 21 points in the second quarter.
Very true.
Then they
but I don't think, but being up 9-0 doesn't guarantee that you're going to score more in the second.
What else? Look, when I see, if I smell blood in the water, I'm throwing every great play I have to get as many points as fast as possible to keep momentum on my side. It just felt like it got conservative, and you know. It's stunk to see the Bills lose that way because you know, they did not. I mean, Stefan Diggs standing on that field, just feeling like literally he was like it was like the championship trophy was like sand in his hand. Like
it was sad tear.
You know, it's one of those things where a player like him knows that the offense blew it, and he doesn't want to point the finger because he knows that a lot of it does fall on him not being able to win the one-on-one. Number one, I'm actually upset about Stefan Diggs not doing that. So, fact of the matter is, if you're Stefan Diggs, you need to get open, dude. You need to get open. Their cornerbacks are good, but they shouldn't be better than you. That's just my opinion.
He got open on some plays, and then Allen missed him to a degree.
Well, so the point of the matter, though, is that, you know, he's dominant against the Rams. He's dominant all year. He's dominant against, Xavier Howard and those boys in Miami. We go up against these cornerbacks, and I don't know. Maybe it was a play calling. We can get into the statistics of what the Chiefs are really good at. But in a game where everything is on the line and you look vanilla, I just
think there's so many factors to consider, even with that, like Beasley playing with the broken fibula. John Brown got hurt in that game and didn't look the same after his knee got stuck in the turf, and I'm not trying to make excuses for that, but that definitely hurt a little bit. And then combine that with what the Chiefs were doing, and also whispers Chris Jones, the effectiveness of that Chiefs defensive front, even when there were times where they just brought forward, like you mentioned it, Steve, the ability of Chris Jones just to blow up Feliciano over and over, and for them to get rushes with just those front four, they were able to do that consistently and be able to break the pocket on Elam with just one or two guys, combined with what they were doing on the back end with their pattern matching and their physicality and their coverage. I agree. I think coming into that game, I thought Stefan Diggs should be able to eat against this defense. I did not think the Bills' offense would be stymied as much as they did, but they executed good coverage on the back and they doubled Diggs when they needed to. They got physical. And when you get, I think that was even more important too. They got physical to the point that they disrupted the Bills' timing on offense. And they disrupted it to the point that Allen didn't have an immediate first or second read. But by the time he would get off read number one and try and go to read number two, let alone read number three, he often had a guy in his face. Eric threw out the stat right here in the chat, which is beautiful. Allen was under pressure for 24 out of 58 dropbacks. He was under pressure a lot in that game. They disguised their defense well. They did a lot of good things on defense that I guess would lend to your point there also of the Bills being outcoached. They executed well. They executed better, and they had a better game plan coming in.
Let me tell you this right now. You know what I'm upset about?
Okay.
You know what I'm upset about? The coaching staff not making Kenny Stills active. No, Cole Beasley's he's playing with a broken foot.
But there's also, I'm
looking at that and I'm like, why doesn't he just get activated?
Maybe he's not up to speed with the playbook. Maybe he doesn't know the game plan. Maybe he's not ready. He's only been there for about, 20 days, I think? Maybe less.
But come on, you're a professional football player. You've been sitting there for a couple of weeks. Just throw him in, see what he can do. Especially, the fact of the matter is we had Cole Beasley playing with a broken foot, broken fibula. That's no joke. The guy ended up limping off the field. Like, look, if you have more, you sign him, you got everyone excited. You know, Kenny Stills is going to be able to just come in here and do something. He just sat in his freaking bedroom eating pizza and wings. Like, we're sitting here trying to find an answer. Like, look, the fact of the matter is that the Buffalo Bills offense had no answer, and it was a very deflating loss. It was just, it wasn't like, okay, there was respect coming out of the game. There's no respect coming out of that game. It's a deflating loss, and if we want to get to the Super Bowl, we can't lose like that in the biggest game since 1993.
Very true. Very true. Eric throwing in that point there, throw him in. Does he? That's my overall concern there as well. Does he know the audibles? Does he know the check with Mees? Does he have the rapport with Allen? Does he know the playbook? But if you don't
know, we don't know that.
Do you trust McDermott to make that assumption and know whether or not he's ready to come in?
I trust McDermott not to put in Cole Beasley with a broken fibula. That's what when you find out all the answers and it's even more deflating, and then you had this guy just sitting there. Everyone was excited to have Kenny Stills. Let's not backtrack here. We were excited. I'm not going to backtrack. I was excited. I want to see him on the field. We didn't give him a shot.
Right. But but guys playing hurt happens all the time.
A broken fibula. Dude, you put in Kenny Stills. I'm sorry. He's going to get more separation than Cole Beasley on something. You know, he played against them. He knew what it was having to match up against them with the Houston Texans.
But does his physical ability, so Beasley was diminished in his physical ability in that game. But does Kenny Stills' physical ability outweigh his understanding of the offense and rapport with Josh Allen and ability to fit into a scheme that he's only been in for under 3 weeks?
Well, I mean, the way I look at it.
Also a very interesting stat here. Beasley averaged 3.1 yards of separation in the game, which is pretty decent. And Tyreek Hill also averaged 3.1 yards of separation. So he was able to make some space.
It sure is. Look, the fact of the matter is that Tyreek Hill may have averaged 3.1, But my God, he was like O.J. Simpson all over the field with that damn football. We couldn't find an answer to save our life. Look, the fact of the matter is that you look at explosiveness, we had zero.
True.
We had zero.
That's
the
why
running
I want to see
game,
that speed in the offseason. Let's
well,
get some more speed
sure.
injected. We can go toe-to-toe.
Kenny Stills isn't faster than Cole Beasley?
Oh,
Kenny Stills isn't. Look, all I'm saying, I understand you look at the audibles, you look at this, you look at that. I get it. I understand. But my thing is that if you know Cole Beasley is that hurt and you're making him play through that, because I would have been less deflated if they started Kenny Stills and then we found out Cole Beasley was out with a broken fibula. Good. Totally understand. We actually have a valid excuse, right? We went into the game believing that Cole Beasley, he was good to go. We didn't know he was playing with a broken fibula. We thought maybe he tweaked his knee or something, like whatever. It's just one of those things. It's like, golly, like, I love analytics. Don't get me wrong. But when you watch a football game, it's black and white. It's black and white. You got zero pressure. They threw the football all over you. Travis Kelce played like the greatest tight end in NFL history. And we had no answers, except when they decided to let us have some answers. They just let up. Whenever the pressure was on, we had no answers.
I want to continue this conversation so bad. We're going to move on to a next topic. I just think there's a lot of context that needs to be added to several of those points. We're going to move on. We've started to discuss it a little bit as we start to wind down here on this very charged up episode of Disguise Coverage. The chat is charged. I'm charged. That hat is charged. I'm still liking that hat. It's distracting, but in a good way. I love it. There you go. Flick it. Let us know.
It's a vibe.
We're going to move into some off-season storylines to watch now. And we've already talked about it a little bit in talking about the Chiefs game and talking about some storylines and talking about some priorities. But what is your off-season storylines to watch for the Buffalo Bills this off-season?
Well, number one, let me just say I am satisfied.
Okay.
I am deflated, but I am satisfied. I sure as hell did not think the Buffalo Bills were going to the AFC Championship this year. I thought we'd win a playoff game.
Mm-hmm. Final four.
Leave. We're good. We're great. Didn't think that we were going to, have the game we had against Lamar Jackson. We did. Look, I'm taking a lot of positive. And going into this offseason, improvement on the coaching staff and in the running game. That's it. Starr's going to come back. I believe he is, unless he wants to stay off of COVID leave, whatever. And I think the linebackers are going to play better. Matt Milano may not be there. With Starr there, it's going to plug up the middle a lot better on the run game. We're going to be fine. Justin Zimmer's emerging. It was good to get Phillips that experience. I think he played amazing, especially coming off an injury. We got to give him a whole hell of a lot of credit. Horrible Harry's back. Look, the silver lining was one, because you're talking about the storylines, right? Just strict storylines, not like, okay. So,
well, if you want to get into something else to watch, is there something non-storyline related?
We clearly are able to just go down the rabbit hole. So I'm going to start broad so we don't begin there. So, which is fine with me. I love rabbit holes, as you can tell. Well, this is raccoon. But look, the silver lining is for the next 10 years, we have a number one receiver and we have a quarterback and a solid defense. We haven't had this since the 90s. It's as simple as that. We haven't had this solid a foundation since the 90s. You can say what you want about most recent years. Trent Edwards, if we would have kept this guy, would have kept that guy, we wouldn't have. The foundation wasn't there all the way up, all the way down, not just on the field. Every single level of the Buffalo Bills organization is solid. And that's it. It's tough to match up against the Kansas City Chiefs. The fact that we got to the Final Four, holy smokes. I mean, that's amazing. So, I leave it broad because, I really do think what the Buffalo Bills have right now is what every team is looking for. Bill Belichick's looking for. The Jets are looking for. Miami's looking for. Right now, the LA Rams are looking for, and they're in the gutter with Jared Goff. look, a lot of teams are in deep crap, and the Buffalo Bills are not. Be very thankful, be very satisfied, because it gives you a chance in the playoffs, as we saw, and it gives you a chance to build upon what you have. Not remove, replace your big pieces. Look, Matt Milano, in my eyes, is a big piece, but I do think Star Lotulelei is a bigger piece. I'm so passionate about, Matt Milano, and I had a big debate, with Sal Capaccio about, how monumental it's going to be, and we're going to see the difference right away. It really is. It really is. I think it's going to take a couple of games, maybe 4 or 5 games for Star Lotulelei to get back in the swing of things if he's back. But I just don't see someone affordable to be a plug-in for Matt Milano in free agency and to just come straight out of the draft to be just as dynamic and just as good right away for the Buffalo Bills. So,
fair point. My sentiments here, my offseason storylines to watch. Step 1 for me, it all starts with the salary cap. I want to see what that number is and the chain reaction it sets off. Milano, Darrell Williams, Feliciano, who's kept, who's not. What does that do? Potential restructurings for contracts. I know a lot of people are talking about John Brown and cutting him or restructuring his deal. There's so much potential for an offseason storyline for everyone having to do with that salary cap and the leverage that it creates and or removes from teams or players at certain positions. We're going to see an offseason like we've never seen before because of what COVID has created, because of what the salary cap is going to be, and because it's come out of nowhere. It's something that teams haven't been preparing for years. It's come out of nowhere like a truck to hit you out of nowhere, and I want to see how teams are going to combat that and what it does, how hamstrung are teams, how teams are going to be able to get creative, who is moved and how, and what we do from there. So that is step 1 for me. I want to see what the salary cap looks like and the set of chain reactions it causes. We could do like a 5-hour episode, and actually I will do that in disguised coverage, not 5 hours, but as we move through on the salary cap and moves as we get closer to free agency and the draft, because there's so many storylines and tangents and avenues in ways everything can offshoot. And then second to that is something I started to talk about when we talked about the Chiefs game. I want to see the adjustments that the Bills make to be able to combat the Chiefs and go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. I want to see what the Bills are able to do to add a little more speed, to add a little more physicality, to add some stability and solidification to the offensive line and or the defensive line from an edge rusher perspective, or stabilizing the right tackle spot and signing Darrell Williams, although he's going to cost a lot, or solidifying the interior of the line. There's a lot of aspects. I don't want to start a whole another large conversation because we're going to get super off track.
I'll tell you right now.
We got to be able to supplement our team to be able to go toe to toe with the standard in the NFL, and that standard is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to be around for a long time. We got to be able to go toe to toe with them. We need the horses that can run with them.
There's an underlying storyline in my head that I'm hoping doesn't happen, because I will do a 2-hour segment. Mark my words today. I will do a 2-hour segment and rant for an hour about the disrespect. If Matt Milano signs with the New England Patriots, I will lose my freaking mind. I'm telling you right now, they got a lot of cap space, and they're going to probably sign whoever's out there to try to improve whatever position. But I'm telling you right now, it'll be the biggest slap to the face. It'll be a bigger slap to the face than Stephon Gilmore. I mean, it'll really hurt.
Yeah,
it'll really hurt to see him just want to. You know what? Look, dude, if he cares about this team after being injured, there's another storyline that goes into Matt Milano too. After being injured, having to come back from injury, blah 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 blah. Look, I know his effect. Fact of the matter, he knows every team, most every team except a couple, are going to have to find some kind of discount deals for certain players. But yeah, it'll just really hurt. It'll hurt really deep down if he decides to sign there. It'll just be a big slap to the face. And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope he stays the hell out of our division. If he wants to go somewhere else, go to New York, the New York Giants, whatever. But if he wants to stay in Buffalo, sign a 2-year deal, then get your big max deal when the time's right and everything starts to chill out, man. Like, you're going to have a good career here. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
I want to get to this question here from Lone Wolf. As we start to wind down here, if anybody has questions, thoughts, comments, concerns in the chat, feel free to start lobbing them our way. We're going to try and answer everything as we start to wind down here on this episode of Disguise Coverage. Question here from Lone Wolf. Who would be your biggest surprise cut by the Bills or someone they don't re-sign who's going into free agency?
Biggest surprise cut?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think it'd be very good for the cap, but I think it would be Mitch Morris.
Oh, there's no way we can cut Mitch Morris.
Well, I'm just saying, we don't want to. We all know how valuable he is. I think Bruce definitely sent a tweet that I liked and I retweeted. It was just,
make Mitch Morris appreciated again.
Morris appreciated again. He definitely don't put the onus of this Chiefs game on him. There's a lot that a center
are people putting the onus on him?
Well, it starts at the center position on the offensive line, being able to help read and whatnot. And then obviously when you got a guard who's able to fill in for you, who's coming off a pec injury and, is showing better productivity throughout the year. I'm not saying in the Chiefs game. I mean, you start to lose a lot of value if you're Mitch Morris. But
I will go to bat.
I don't think he did. I personally don't. But we don't know. We don't know what they're seeing on film. We don't know what they're going to value. We don't know if there's other people on the market. But this cap, this whole situation, we're just going to have to be patient. And, I think for a surprise cut, I look at Mitch Morris, and I think that'd be the surprise cut for me.
Oh, that would be a surprise. It would be a surprise for me as well. I think he offers a lot for us. I recognize his lack of power in the run game or some of the things that people are trying to connect in comments made by Bean and McDermott. And a couple people mentioned that in the chat, but he's just pulled off so many great reads and combo blocks and being able to get to the second level, and his intelligence and connection and ability to run that line would be a massive loss for me if we were able to lose or unfortunately lose Mitch Morris. That would be a big surprise for me. I think for me, Lone Wolf, and that's a really good question. I don't want to say surprise because it's been talked about. John Brown is someone to watch, not potentially just straight out being cut, but his money and being able to restructure a deal. There's a lot of good free agent wide receivers out there on the market. And I think the Bills have leverage in potentially restructuring and doing some things with John Brown. Because I think if the options are like, hey, you can go to free agency or we can restructure and have you stay in Buffalo for some things, yada, yada. He's not going to have a lot of leverage going to free agency. One, in this salary cap climate of 2021 in this offseason, but two, with the amount of wide receivers and quality wide receivers that are available this offseason. So I think you'll see some sort of John Brown restructuring more than you'll see a cut, but I think he would be the biggest surprise cut in terms of it being a surprise, but also having some basis in realism. The money works out to a degree. I also think for Morse, as a couple people have thrown out there, the dead money works out different ways based on when he's cut, if it's a post June 1st cut and so on and so forth. And Randy throwing a comment in there. Moving on from Brown makes sense. They have Davis. There's options in the draft. Hodgins coming back, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I really like what John Brown brings to this team. I like his dynamic, but I could see the Bills potentially moving on from him, or at the very least coming him being like, hey, listen, we got to do a restructure, because they'll have the leverage given the roster makeup now, combined with what John Brown is going to be faced with if he goes to the open market. It's not
and also we have to take into account players that were injured, whatever have you. Did the Buffalo Bills still have success at those positions when they were injured? The only one that we can say is black and white is the Matt Milano position. There ain't no way in hell AJ Klein is going to take his spot. I mean, if we're being hypothetical here, I mean, if it's just one of those things, like he does not fill that role well. He's a blitzing semi-coverage linebacker. He found his stride. Great. But, that's where I'm going to start there.
I would agree with that as well. If we're looking to replace Milano from someone already on the roster, I think you're going to have to go more towards Dodson than you do Klein, because Klein doesn't have the wheels to cover and be in open space like that. I still think he's solid in his downhill function and sustaining the edge. And he showed a little more open field ability as we progressed throughout the year. But yeah, he's not meant to be that rangy guy that Milano is. If Milano goes, we have to address that position. And I think it would be better served to address it in the draft, especially, again, you take a guy in the first round, you get that 5th-year option, you have good contract control in pretty affordable circumstances. you would get a guy that you're able to have for a long term, especially having being paired up to Tremaine Edmunds, whose fifth-year option is right around the corner, creeping up on us. The Bills have to make a decision on that. So solidifying that linebacker position is definitely something that I'm keeping an eye on as well. I mean, but I just spoke about it earlier, so I didn't bring it through now. But Milano, number one this offseason is, that salary cap aspect and how it affects Milano and Williams and Feliciano as well. Although I like Feliciano's attitude and mentality more than I do his on-field ability and how he affects the team and his strengths there, especially after seeing him get eaten up by Chris Jones in that Chiefs game. But it's going to be an interesting offseason. And if this episode with you and I and the people in the chat, if this is any indication, as I throw up the Toodles, you guys banner, because, we're starting to wind down here and saying Toodles and saying goodbye as we wrap up here. It's going to be a very charged offseason. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of thoughts. There's a lot of feelings. There's a lot of preferences. There's a lot of belief. And again, if this episode is any indication, just this one tiny episode in the grand scheme of things, this is going to be a very, very interesting offseason. As you mentioned, and as I think Bills Mafia needs to get their head around, this is a good team with a solid foundation. They've got stability and leadership on field and in the front office. They've got good head coach, a good GM. They've drafted well. They've built a good team. They have a franchise quarterback who's established himself. They have a star wide receiver, number one wide receiver in Stefan Diggs. But they have to get better in certain areas if they want to be able to contend with the best. If they want to be able to contend with the standard, i.e. the Kansas City Chiefs, they have to change some things. And they have to get better and adjust some things and tweak some things on both sides of the ball. Adapt or die. You got to be able to be sustainable in what you do and how you attack teams and continue to get better. This offseason, everyone's going to have a whole bunch of tape on Josh Allen and the Bills offense and figuring out how to try and stop him and how to further attack this Bills defense. So you got to get better. You got to be able to tweak. You got to be able to adjust. You got to get better in your mentality and in the roster. It's going to be a very, 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 very interesting and charged offseason.
I can't wait. I can't wait for the grudge match at Arrowhead. It's going to be next year.
Yeah, and we play Kansas City next year. We'll see how we stack up with them. And man, what an episode. What a way to kick off this offseason here on Disguised Coverage. I want to thank you, my man, for coming by and charging us up here and really setting the tone for what this offseason can be and kind of representing being a microcosm of people's minds and the dichotomy that exists in people's brains of how this team goes forward and how this season was and how the Chiefs game affected everybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an honor. I love what Cover One does. I'm very intrigued with you guys going forward, how it progresses and all that jazz. I mean, you guys got amazing following, amazing fans that follow what you guys do, and they're just so into it. They're interactive. I think it's great. And Buffalo Rumblings is where you can find me at Buff Hub on Twitter. You can listen to me every Saturday, hear how I rant. Same thing. Actually, this weekend, I'm going to have Sal Capaccio, repeating that again. And we had a good debate. I'm excited for everyone to hear it. And, love what you guys do over there. Say hi to the family. And, go Bills. I'm excited for this freaking offseason, man. Let's see what happens. And it's fine. We're AFC East champions. Be excited, be thankful, but it's okay to debate. It's okay to try to figure things out and, engage with each other. That's what's important. Look, make no mistake. Buffalo Bills players, I think, definitely watch what we do. And I think it may fire them up too, when they see the fan interaction and they're seeing, how much we care. So, it's something to think about. But just want to mention that too.
Appreciate you. That's a good ending thought. And again, I'm Anthony, your host here on Disguised Coverage. I will be here next week riding on another episode of Disguised Coverage. I'll be in the film room next week as well with Eric Turner as we start to fully dive into this offseason, the draft, prospects, breaking down film, breaking down free agency needs of all kinds, fit, scheme, traits, a whole bunch of things as we really get rolling in this offseason as this Buffalo Bills team tries to get better. I noticed you made a little movement. Did you have something you wanted to? Oh, there we go. I see some things coming through. There you go. Plugging this stuff in the chat. That's fantastic. Again, I appreciate you coming by. This is a very charged up episode. I appreciate everybody riding with us on this episode, listening live, watching live, listening later. If you're audio only on YouTube or one of the podcasting platforms, thank you so much. While you're there, please rate and review and subscribe. It is fantastic. It is what drives everything and furthers everything for myself and the Cover One team. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Steven for being my guest on this episode of Disguise Coverage. I appreciate everyone. Stay safe. Go Bills. And I will see you next